Hey there, this is Red. It's time for an episode of Red Plays. So the deal is I just got my shiny new Eclipse 2.0. So for this episode of Red Plays, what we're going to do is we're actually going to go through the setup of your first game of Eclipse and just show how to get out all of the pieces and get ready to play your first game. So, I've got my drink ready. And let's get cracking on this. Let's drop down to the board and we can get started. All right, so I've done a bunch of pre-setup here. And if you look at what I've got out on the board, there's a couple of things where I've jumped the gun a little bit, which I'm doing out of order of how you would do it according to the rules. So let's talk about that a little bit. I've already selected players, and you would probably do that later in the rule setup. Actually, normally when I play with my friends, this is one of the first things we do is figure out our which races we're going to play and do some bidding on that first, and then we go do the rest of the stuff because that seems to be the most fun. But actually in the rules, you're supposed to do some of the board setup first, so we'll go through that, and then talk about what's on the player tracks here. All right, so I've got my rule book right here. I'm going to pop it open. The other thing you're not going to have is these little hex tiles, which I've made myself. And thank God I made them for the first edition of Eclipse, and the hexes fit in the second edition. So I am humongously relieved about that. I don't have to go back and remake all these little tiles. All right, so if I'm looking at my Eclipse manual here, you've got your first couple of pages, and then it hops right into game setup, right? So the first thing you want to do is you want to take a look at your tech tiles. And your tech tiles are... if you pulled everything and punched everything out, your tech tiles are going to be these tiles right here. Right, and they should go in this white bag. So if I'm going to drop them on my overhead there, right, these are all the advancements that you're going to pull out during the game. So these should all end up in your tech bag. You shake them all up, you put them all in there and shake them up. And that's what this board right here is going to be used for, is for tracking which technologies are available. So if I look, what I'm setting up for here is a two-player game, and in the manual it says how many tiles you should pull for each player count. So at 2 players, I'm pulling out 12 tiles. So I'm going to reach in here, and I'm going to mix them all up, and I'm going to grab 12 tiles. All right, so let's see here. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. So there's 12, right? So I have 12 tiles pulled. That's kind of funky how the green shows right through my hand there. Yay for the green screen. All right, I'm going to start dropping them out there. So if I look, these have the cogs in them, and then I've got a cost. There's a cost in this one. It says 12, and this one's 12, right? So it's going to drop right in there. And then my Gauss shields are a 2, so they should end up right at the beginning. This one is an artifact key, which is a 16 way down here at the end. Neutron bombs, which are a fan favorite, go right there. Fusion drive. Let's get these out there real fast. What do we have here? This one is the positron computer. It's got an 8 cost. It goes there. We have our quantum grid, which is one of the best upgrades in the game. Goes right there. Tachyon drive goes there. Neutron bombs again. There's a second neutron bombs. Orbitals, being that I'm playing all Terrans, this is kind of a worthless upgrade, I believe. Fusion source, which is a 4, should go there. And then our monoliths, again, which go there. All right. There are some, let's see if I can find one really fast. All right. So if I had grabbed an upgrade like that one right there, which is the antimatter splitter, those go down in the bottom, and I would select an additional tile. So that would not count against the initial 12 that I was supposed to pull, and I would throw another one out there. All right. So that's step 1, is getting your tech track set up, getting the initial technologies ready to go. Now, as I said, we've already picked races, but this is one of those things that could potentially affect how you decide or which race you pick. So the fact that in the game setup in the manual it has this happen first could potentially affect which races you select. In this mode where we're playing all Terrans, it doesn't really matter because everybody's the same, right? But it could be that there's a couple of cheap technologies and maybe you want to select a race that will allow you to get those technologies earlier on, or maybe technologies come out that make it so that you can't really get any good ones on the first, so it doesn't matter to get a tech race out there, and you're not worried about it. So that it just kind of depends. It could have an effect on race, but like I said, generally we don't worry about that first. We pick races first before we look at technologies. They're just saying there could be a competitive edge to doing it this way, as the book says, tech and then races. Okay, so anyway, the first thing we get out of the way is picking your tech tiles, right? Then the next part of it is our reputation tiles should be in a bag, which are these tiles here. So your reputation tiles, when you do fights, you earn reputation, which are these, and you don't get to know what they are. You're going to pick the best of them. You're going to pick the best one when you grab out of the bag. And they go in this bag, so you want to have that bag ready to go. Let's see here. Your discoveries are these here. I usually put these in a thing where I can keep them all face down. I have put them in a bag previously and jumbled them up. The problem is when you draw them out of the bag, you're likely to see the side that you don't want to see, which kind of reveals what it is. So I'll either put them on a flat surface somewhere else, or I'll put them in a thing like this where I keep them face down and try to mix them up a little bit so we don't know what they are. All right, so those are your discoveries, right? Next thing the book has you doing is looking for your blueprints. So the blueprints are these tiles here. Okay, and I've got them set out, and you see one for your GCDS, your Galactic Center. Oh, I'm off the map. There we go. Your Galactic Center Defense System, I believe, is what that stands for. Then you have ones for the other alien ships, right? So one thing to look for when you're doing your first game, I would not recommend using these, which have the two marks up in the side. Those are supposed to be for more advanced players and more advanced games. So for your first game, I would strongly recommend just using these because they're the basic ones. Also, if you're just playing your first game, I would strongly recommend going with just Terrans too, right? Because they have none of the advanced abilities that the other races have. It makes it a lot easier just to play the Terrans right off the bat. First game, I highly recommend just Terrans. And you can worry about the mechanics of the game and less about the mechanics of the races. All right, so we've got tech tiles, we've got our bags ready, we've got our discoveries ready. The next thing that we go after is, we got our blueprints. So we have each of the ships out there. Next thing we're looking for is our GCDS is going to go in the middle here. So if you see these symbols, so this is going to be our center tile. And let me pull it out of my tray here if I get my fingernail in there. It's going to be your center tile, right? And it's got a picture of the GCDS on it. And this little shape that's right here says that a discovery tile needs to go on there. So what that means is we're going to pick up one of these discovery tiles. We're going to set it right here. We don't get to know what it is. It's a mystery. And then our great big ship is going to go right on top of there. Boom. All right. Just for those of you that haven't seen the GCDS model, which is beautiful, it's going to drop right there on the middle, right? And it's represented by this tile over here, right? He's got a bunch of cannons on him. He's the tough part about him is he's got a decent amount of hull and he's got a lot of shots. So you kind of got to beef up a bit before you go in there after him. All right. So the GCDS is in the middle. We take a look at, we've got our other sides out there, our Guardians and the Ancients. Guardians and Ancients. So we have those selected. What else do we have? I think at that point in time, we've got our Galactic Center. I'm following down the rules here. We're ready to go. So then you would start selecting player races. Now, like I said, I've already selected, we're going to do Terrans, and we picked those, and I've gotten the boards out and ready. One of the things that you'll look at on the player races, as you get your board out, one of the things you will need to look at is you're going to get all your little cubes out and get them ready to go. You're going to fill everything up except for the first slot is going to be empty. Same thing. If I pull, let's grab this player here, right? I pulled everything out. Since I'm playing two-player, we don't get to make allies. That's not happening. I think you need to get to 4 players before you start doing that. You will take out all of your cubes, but you should leave 3 discs in here because you're going to have upgrades that eventually give you potentially 3 more discs. And you should fill up your row of discs on your player sheet. So you're going to fill up your row of discs. You're going to need 3 of your colony ships, colonization tokens, so you can drop cubes on the table. The cubes tray should fill up except for the first slot should remain open. All right. The next thing is figuring out where your markers are going to go. And that's very clearly right here on the player sheet. So if I grab this player sheet, let's see if I can get that underneath there. You see right there, you've got at the top there, you're going to get 4 resources, then 3 science, and 3 money, right? So that's how I've got these placed. And the reason these have a hole in the top of them is so that you can drop it in on top of the other one, because there's 2 of them that are 4, right? And then the other thing is there's 2 sides to these tokens. So if you look at them, there's kind of this 4 arrow side and then the single arrow. And so that's when you go over 40, because the board goes around to 39, and then if you were to wrap around, you would shoot up to 40 on the other side. You would start moving up using the 40 side of the marker, right? But anyway, so back to the Terrans. If you look on the Terrans, they start at 4, 3, and 3. So I have both of my Terrans set up with 4, 3, and 3. All right. The other thing is we've got out their sector hexes, and in the rules it says how you should set up for a different player count. So if I look at, let's see if I can get that underneath there. There's the 2 player count right there, right? We should be on opposing sides of the middle, which we are. So I've got my white player here and my blue player over there. The other thing to note in this version is if you look at these tiles, pull this player tile out here, there's an arrow on the center there. See how that arrow points that way? That should point to the middle hex, right? So when I place it, this arrow should point here. That goes the same for these ones that have the enemy ships on them. They have arrows too. So everybody's tiles are going to be spaced in a specific direction towards the center. All right. The next thing we take a look at is I've got my player board set up. I've got my cubes out there. I need to populate my home worlds. So what should happen is for each player, you're going to have 1 is going to go on your center here, saying that you've influenced that. And then you should have an open 1 of each, 1 of your materials, your science, and your money. So if I look at my track here, I've got 1 brown should go out here, 1 pink, and 1 of the yellow. Now, the other ones that have stars on them that you see, those are advanced. So you have to actually research that technology before you can populate those. So as the white player, I've got that stuff out here. The blue player is going to do the same thing. We're going to get our blue token out there. And then we need our first off of the brown track. This one comes off the pink track, and this one comes off the yellow track. All right, so we've got 1 remaining thing that we need to do. We need to get an interceptor. So when you start, I believe you get 1 interceptor out there. So our interceptors are your small ships, your little bitty ones, right? So for the white player, that is these ships here. These are the small ones. I get 1 interceptor, right? And then for the blue player, you get one of the little blue ships. It's going to drop out here. So I've got my blue interceptor. All right. So at this point, I believe we're set up and ready to go. We're ready to start the first round, and that's indicated by we have our little purple marker here. That's your round tracker right here. Sitting in the first round there. We've got, we should populate these ancients here, right? So let's put discoveries on these. And they need a ship. So we go ship, there's that. And then I have a tray of ships way over here on the side. Let's grab these bad boys. 1 there, one there. It's kind of nice to have ships to represent these guys. One there and one there. Okay, now we're ready to go. I think the next episode that I'll do, I'll probably actually start playing with these characters. I've got Beatrice over here in the blue and Jocasta here in the white. And we'll do just a little head-to-head two-player and see how that goes. Things I would recommend also having out, if you have these player aids, I would grab them out and you have the action order here ready to go. That's good. I'll make sure everybody's got their card that has their action phase on it and the different actions they can do so that they can then flip that when they're passing to go to the be sitting in the reaction phase. Let's see, is there anything else on the board that I haven't missed? Oh, I forgot one thing. We're going to go back real fast. One of the things we didn't talk about was the sector tiles, right? So the thing that I'm going to say is for your first game, I would remove any of your nebulas, your warp portals, any of the fancy sectors that you got, take them out of the game. All right. Start with just the basic sector tiles, things that don't have fancy influences and other rules that you need to worry about. All right. So you're going to have all your sector 1 tiles and you're going to have them shuffled up. So you shuffle up our sector 1 tiles and you got your sector 2 tiles, same thing. Shuffle them up. You can take your sector 3 tiles and shuffle them up, but you don't get all your sector 3 tiles. And that's one of the things I missed as part of our little setup process here is there's this big fat stack of sector 3 tiles. And the sector 3 is going to be when you explore to this outside area. So when you have a smaller number of players, they try to prevent you from going too far out. So you're forced to kind of go into the middle a little bit, which is especially important when you're playing against Planta. So there's another little chart here that says how many outer sectors you should have. So if we take a look at that, it says, oh, let's see, can I get that? I need to go down a little bit. There we go. So outer sectors for 2 players, we should have 5, right? So let's cut. We're going to take our stack and we're going to get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that's all of the outer sectors we can explore, right? So you have ring 1, which is this ring. So we're actually only going to use 6 of these tiles. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now there is some, when you go to explore, you can not take those tiles. That's part of your action. So just having 6 out here isn't exactly right because you want to have all of them and you could decide to pass on them and get other tiles, right? So there is actually a need to have more than 6 tiles out here because you can pass on tiles and draw other tiles. The sector 2 tiles are going to be this next ring where all of our players are at. So actually there's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of those that we'll use, but it's the same deal. We could pass on them, decide to go for a different tile as one of our actions. So we still need the full stack out there. And then anything beyond that is going to be our sector 3. So you can see in a 2-player game, there's not going to be a whole lot of sector 3 exploration. It's going to keep it really focused in the center. As you grow the number of players, that count of sector 3 tiles, that stack gets a lot taller, and you're able to play as many sector 3s as you have tiles to get out there and grow that out. So, okay, so at this point, I'm ready to play. I've got my sector tiles, I've got my ships, I've got my players, I've got my blueprints, I've got my tech tiles, I've got my discoveries, I've got my alien ships out there. We're ready to jump into round 1. What you don't see on the table here, I've got some stuff off to the side and out of the way. You saw me grabbing ships from over there. I have my monoliths and my dice and my other alien craft there. Usually I have another tray like this to roll dice in so they don't go crazy all over the table. The other thing is I've got my tech tiles sitting over here to the side. Those should be within easy reach because you're probably going to need those pretty quick as you start upgrading your ships. Other than that, we're ready to play. So next episode, we'll actually go through some of this one-on-one PvP Beatrice versus Jocasta and see who comes out on top in this two-player game of Eclipse 2.0. So, thanks for watching.